In the United States, but there is one state that is still feeling a little left out. Bordering the swing state of Wisconsin, Iowa is looking to pull a surprise. A day before elections, a poll shows Kamala Harris is leading Donald Trump. The numbers are 47 to 44, well within the margin of error, but even this is significant. Just in September, the same poll showed Donald Trump with a 4-point lead. Back in June, when Joe Biden was still in the race, there was an 18-point difference. And this is not the story for only this election. 2020 and 2016, Iowa comfortably handed a win to the red camp. 2012, of course, was the exception with Barack Obama. So these numbers are testament that Iowa was declared an easy red state until now. The question is, how is this possible so close to the election? And the answer is women. This is how the Iowa pie is looking right now. Kamala Harris is leading, Donald Trump is in the second space, as we told you, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is at 3% on the third stage. Remember, RFK Jr. ended his presidential bid after seeing no path to victory and then went on to endorse Donald Trump. But unfortunately or fortunately, his name will appear on the ballot on most of the states. What is also important in this polling is that so close to elections, 3% of the voters still say that they are not sure. Experts worry that they might choose to skip voting totally. So with women voters, RFK Jr. on the ballot and the undecided, all these factors will play a part. And in an election that's so close, every voter is going to matter. All right, as our report suggests, tomorrow is election day. Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump are in battleground states that could finally determine who wins the presidency, as we have been covering extensively here on WION. The polls have been neck and neck nationally, especially in the battleground states, the 7 battleground states that we have been closely tracking. On the west, of course, is Arizona and Nevada, and when we come to the eastern coast, there is Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Wisconsin and Michigan. And to tell us what's happening on the ground, our correspondent Susan Tehrani is joining us live from New York, and also with us is our correspondent Siddhant Sibul from Washington, D.C. Good to see you, both of you. Susan, if I could quickly start with you, what's happening in Iowa? It seems like Kamala Harris could flip it to the blue state.
Yeah, Iowa has been making headlines because of that outlier poll that came out less than 24 hours ago. You know, traditionally, Iowa, as you mentioned, is a Republican stronghold. It's very hard for a Democrat candidate to flip. But all of the polls that we've been seeing so far point to that red wave, for lack of a better praise in Iowa. So we'll have to wait and see whether or not this Des Moines poll, the latest one that came out, is an outlier, or is it going to be the only real true poll that comes out of this election season. Remember, we've often been talking about how reliable polls are at the end of the day. In 2022, we were surprised that we didn't see what the polls were indicating. In 2022, the margins were a lot different than what was being reported, and that's natural. I mean, we have to see what polls really, what we're asking them to do. But the specific one that came out with a few percentage points, with Kamala Harris being ahead in Iowa, has really made headlines. We'll have to wait and see what the story is, but it'll be very interesting.
Absolutely. Wait and see has become the slogan of the U.S. elections this time. Siddhant, good to see you just outside the White House this time. What are you picking on from the ground?
Well, on the ground, two things are for sure. First, it's a neck-on-neck battle between the two nominees, the Republican and the Democrat presidential candidate, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. Both the candidates today will be doing their blitz in the swing states like Pennsylvania and North Carolina, states that decide the direction of the election and who will be the next resident of the place behind me, that is the White House. The second, of course, is the situation on the ground. There are, of course, increased concerns over security, and of course security has been massively increased. In fact, if I can show you, you can see in front of the White House, the fencing has been put up. This fencing has primarily been put up because of the fears over any post-poll violence by protesters, and also a number of establishments have put up the wooden planks as well, so that there is no break-ins during any protest. The security and the authorities do not want to take any chance, and there are lessons learned from the past as well, especially in 2020 when we saw the incident happening in which the Capitol Hill was the target. So largely these are the two main aspects, whether it's the neck-on-neck battle between the two main candidates or whether it is the security situation on the ground. In the battleground states, especially in Georgia, where Trump in the past has alleged over votes being stolen, there of course situation remains precarious in terms of the security.
Right. Susan, if we could take Siddhant's point a little further, speaking of the battleground states, both the candidates are going to be in at least 4 of them. Kamala Harris is going to hold 3 rallies in Pennsylvania, one key state this time, and Donald Trump is going to span across North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and another one. So now that we are seeing the actual closing arguments, do you think any more surprises are in store, or are we going to hear the usual speeches by Harris and Trump?
Yeah, you know, because of the setup of how the electoral process is really determined here in the United States, those battleground states are the ones that ultimately decide who the president of the United States will be. And that's why these candidates are spending so much time there. What's interesting is that the former president is spending so much time in Pennsylvania, traditionally a blue stronghold. In 2016, he was able to flip Pennsylvania, but then in 2020, excuse me, it went to President Biden, and then, you know, we'll have to see which way it sways this time as well. It's a patchwork of really different ideologies, Pennsylvania as a state. It has a lot of electoral votes at stake. And then you have Michigan. Again, you know, it is a swing state now, but with what's happening in Gaza and the Muslim community there's been a lot of headlines regarding that. And it'll be interesting to see which way Michigan votes this time around as well. Is it going to be blue Democrats or Donald Trump, who has gained and garnered the support of many of the Muslim American communities in that state? So it is interesting that the former president is spending so much time in these states. As for Kamala Harris, it's not very surprising that she would want to wrap up in a place like Philadelphia. Once again, you know, it's very iconic. It's very blue. That's the part of Pennsylvania that is blue. And then ultimately, you know, we'll have to see if there are any surprises with those states that are just traditionally blue or red.
For now, let's move across. Susan, thank you so much for all those updates from New York.